No, man, I appreciate the feedback and the support, and I've been having a great time doing it, man. We're this is episode 9. I mean, we only got one more episode to go, and then we close out season 3. But we got a lot
Wow.
of cool things planned for the. I'm doing it's called a Style to Lead, a TCLP art exhibit that's gonna start. It's gonna happen in September. I'll tell you more about it offline,
Ooh,
but it's gonna be dope.
yeah.
Yeah.
Dope, man. So did you start 3 years ago? Each year has been a season?
No, so I started a year ago, it's January of 2025, and
That's
so
amazing.
yeah. So I've done 3 seasons in a year and a half.
You just been cooking up. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great
Yes.
work. Great work. I salute, man. Uh,
Appreciate you, man. Well, welcome to the Twin Cities Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin King. I'm joined today by colleague Terry. He is the founder of Life Juices Superfood Bar. So, colleague, welcome to the podcast, man. Appreciate you.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me too.
I want to
Pleasure to
start with um, are you from the Twin Cities, by the way? Is Twin Cities home for you?
Yeah, yes indeed. Yeah, I'm Southside Minneapolis native, uh, second generation, grew up East Phillips, moved around, pretty much stayed in every neighborhood in South Minneapolis. But yeah, from the Twin Cities.
Okay, okay. So I want to start with before Life Juices. And so talk to me about like what stage of life that you were in and kind of who was shaping you into that person that you ended up becoming.
Yeah. Before I started the business, life was different. It was a roller coaster of highs and lows. I can start with some of the peaks. So I was working a corporate job for Lifetime Fitness in their corporate headquarters out in Chanhassen, and it was a great job. I loved it. Um, the highest paying salary to date. Was making good money, but the job was rewarding. I was able to kind of help navigate people along their wellness journey, connect them with fitness and movement. Something I really loved and enjoyed doing. Um, and I was there for 3 years. And life was good. I think I was driving the latest car at the time, new apartment, making good money. I was, in my late 20s at the time. And before I know it, life kind of just completely turned upside down. And that was because my father was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal cancer. And it was out the blue, right? It's like, a lot of our elders in our community, we don't tend to kind of do those health checkups until it's too late. And that was kind of the situation for my dad. And so it was already, the cancer was stage 4 when we caught it. Um, and so, like I mentioned, I went from kind of just this peak of just, having the life I thought I wanted. And, within an instant, that just kind of came crashing down. And, so that kind of set me off on this research journey of just that's what delved me into holistic health, and the power of juicing and just alternative medicines, right? Because if you've had any loved one diagnosed with cancer, it's like, it's radiation and chemo, right? Those are the options.
Yeah.
And I just remember being super frustrated at the time with the medical industry, like, what else is there? And so that's kind of what set me off on researching alternative plant medicine. And so from the time of his diagnosis, he ended up, my father passed away within a year. He transitioned. And so that's kind of what set me, again, when you lose a loved one, like it's earth shattering, and you just completely rethink everything. Like your whole life is up for negotiation, right? It's like, do I want this job? Do I want to be in Minnesota? Like you start just renegotiating everything. And so that's kind of what set me off on this new path. and launched me into a whole new trajectory into thinking about entering the marketplace with the business idea.
What year was this now?
Oh man, to put a timeline to it, so this is 2015. This
Okay,
is
so
2015.
9 years ago. Okay.
Yeah, because I've been building the brand for, for 8 years, right? So, and it wasn't a straight line, there was lots of stops and gaps in between that time. But yeah, so 2015, and after my father's passing, I was kind of armed with all this information, and it's like, what do you do with it now? And I kind of arrived at the idea of, wanting um to just impact families and individuals who kind of had my similar experience of losing loved ones to preventable illnesses. And it just kind of boiled down to like healthy diet and lifestyle decisions, something I thought was missing in our community. You know what I mean? You look at our neighborhoods and you kind of see, like Life Juices is a perfect example. You look down the street, it's the check cashing place next to the fast fried food that's across the street from the fast food joint, next to the liquor store. And so there's just not a lot of like healthy options. And that's kind of where we came in and wanted to flip the script.
So 11 years ago, you said, I'm gonna transition. And my father died of lung cancer too. So I totally understand just that when you're rethinking everything. My father
Yeah.
passed 26 years ago. And you're right. You start doing a calibration of life and what you want to
Yep.
do and what it means for you. So when you said, "Okay, going to do this in 2015," what was the first thing you did? Like, had you had entrepreneurial experience before, or what were you basing it like off of?
Yeah. And so, like I mean, it wasn't a straight line to opening the business. It wasn't linear. It was like, I had to really, I kind of lost it all, right? I was making poor decisions, lifestyle decisions. I was drinking heavy at the time, and which led to some consequences legally, right? Had to sort through that. And then coming out on the back end of that is when it was like, all right, um, you know, I need to figure this out. And so some of the first steps I did was, researching like, okay, where can I access commercial space? Like I have this idea, right? I know like I want to start um, with cold pressed juices because it's a low barrier to entry as far as like startup costs. Like you don't need a whole lot of capital to get started. And so I started researching commissary kitchens that I could access, and I found a space in North Minneapolis. It was a community kitchen at the time that Appetite for Change was running, and they were leasing out space to start up food-based businesses. And so I applied, and then I actually got connected with a community nonprofit, Neon, who just actually built a state-of-the-art food center that recently opened. But at the time, they were a small nonprofit in North Minneapolis, and they were looking to empower food-based businesses. So um, they helped me get in the commissary kitchen, and provided some additional resources. And from there, I just started kind of playing around with different recipes, figuring out food combinations, things that I wanted to use. The juice didn't nearly look as good as it does now. So and then the first kind of pop up I had after that was in North Minneapolis, and it was on a Monday morning that I took over a cafe in the morning in the breakfast hours from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And that was kind of my first, proof of concept where I got to, sell the cold pressed juice and, kind of get a reaction from community. And so that was kind of my first, two steps into thinking about launching a business.
When you were going through this process, I mean, was there any trepidation? Were you excited? Was you having just all the emotions? Like, how did you stay steady?
Yeah, I think I was motivated by just the ignorance of what I didn't know. Like I didn't know how hard it was going to be to start a business and have that business sustain myself. Like, so I was kind of like filled with just this, exuberance and motivation, and all this is going to be great. Within a couple months, I figured out how hard it was going to actually be. Um, because I was working a part-time job at the time, and I'm juicing, and I'm selling at the markets on the weekends, and it was a lot. But I felt good about the reception I was getting, right? The feedback I was getting from community. And that's kind of that kind of kept the wind in my sails to keep going. Every time I'd go to a market, people would tell me how much they liked the product, how necessary the concept was, and just to keep going. So I think that was the ultimate push that allowed me to just keep bumping my head against the wall, and just kind of failing forward, as I like to say, was kind of the reception I got from community.
So now I know at least the one I went to, the one, Life Juices I went to, you're retrofitting Dairy Queens, or at least that Dairy Queen, right? The one that's in St.
Yeah.
Paul? Okay.
Yep.
So talk to me about kind of the business strategy behind that of saying I've identified a building, existing building that I want to retrofit, and talk to me about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. So that was a lengthy process. Something that I learned a lot with. And so, like you mentioned, it was this old Dairy Queen, Lexington University, that did survive the pandemic. Um, it went out of business 2019, and at the time, I'm living behind the building, couple blocks down. So I'm seeing it kind of go under, and I'm seeing it sit vacant. And I contacted the broker, and the broker told me, it was like, oh, we're not looking to sell the building. We're looking to lease. Okay, so how much are you guys thinking for rent? And the number they told me just didn't make sense. For It's a 600 square foot building. There's no cooking equipment, right? So the amount that they wanted for rent was almost equal to a mortgage. And so I suggested to the broker, I said, hey, you guys may want to think about selling this building, because the amount of rent, it's going to be hard to collect that. And so a year later, they ended up putting the building for sale. And I told the broker, hey, contact me if the owner's interested in selling. She didn't, right? Listed it, went straight to market. And so I got back in touch with her again. And I was like, hey, I'm interested in buying this building. I got a really cool concept that I think would work. And she's like, oh, well, I'll talk to the owner. And it turns out the owner was out of state. It's in California. No ties to the community really, just kind of looking to get top dollar. And so I figured out they were sizing me up, right? They didn't think I could get the deal done. I didn't have enough experience. They were looking for a more established building owner. Um, and uh, Dunkin' Donuts actually wanted the space. So Chick-fil-A, Dunkin' Donuts was all in a bidding war for the building. High traffic. You've seen the high traffic quarter. But they found out through city zoning that you can't have a drive-through, right? So they pulled out. And then when they kind of left, they were, the broker ended up circling back to me. It's like, hey, well, we couldn't make it work with Dunkin' Donuts, but are you still interested? And yeah, so that's kind of how I got in the door. And then figuring out financing was its own challenges, right? Access to capital. There's just not a lot of lenders who are willing to take a risk on a startup business. We were actually told that. Lenders told us, hey, we suggest you lease. This is your first brick and mortar. I think the risk is too great. So that left us, it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because we ended up partnering with NDC, another community nonprofit. Um, you know, they're 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 designed to help empower businesses, small businesses. And so they ended up coming in and helping take a lead on the real estate loan. And then we partnered with the CDFI, who's a non-traditional lender, you know, community development financing institution, and they have the same mission, right? They're mission driven. So we were able to get the deal done almost 2 years in and under contract. And yeah, so it was quite a journey of getting the space. But to your point, the building was retrofitted for a juice bar, right? There's already a big walk-in cooler, refrigeration, um, and we didn't need any to install a HVAC hood or any heavy cooking equipment. So it was already primed for um, what our business does. So it ended up working out, and 6 months for kind of renovation, and just the building was dilapidated. We had to make some updates, and then we opened July of 2023.
Wow. So you were because so during that year or two period, you were still in motion with this, right? You were still delivering the
Yeah.
product, and you had a food truck, right? Is that what was happening in
It,
between that?
yeah, a good question. So to go back, just to give some additional context. So like we started, like I mentioned, at the pop-ups, doing farmers markets, table, tent. I literally had like a styrofoam cooler that people use for bait, little guppies in. And so we were weekend warriors at the farmers markets, and then we did that for 2 3 years. Saved up our earnings, reinvested our dollars, and bought a food truck, a small food truck. And we were trucking for another 3 4 years, selling our cold pressed juice. We at that time we expanded into doing plant based slushies, and then we had some vegan tacos. So each year was like we tried to level up a little bit, and then so we got the food truck, and then acquired a trailer. So now we have a food truck and a trailer, and we're doing multiple events, right? Because a lot of the events in the summer fall on the same Saturday, right? So we were able to double down and be in two locations at once with the truck and the trailer. And again, reinvested our earnings into the business, and used some of those funds as a down payment for the old Dairy Queen. But yes, during that time when we're in acquisition trying to purchase the building, we didn't let up at all. Excuse me. We were still slinging juice on the truck. We're still working every event we can get into. We had a commissary kitchen we were renting out in Minneapolis. Um, so the business was active. We never really took a pause since 2018. And that's what kind of made, NDC and our on some of our funding partners say that they wanted to take a chance on us because they seen that we never we never really let up, right? We were relentless in our pursuit of this business and proving that it was a viable concept. Because at the time, you got to think there's not a lot of juice bars. There's not like a proven model for this, especially in the urban community, right? In low income neighborhoods, you don't see any juice or smoothie bars. So we had to kind of blaze our own trail, and that's kind of what helped us build up the brand equity over the years. So when it came time to open the doors for our storefront, we had already earned community trust, right? We had already built brand equity. We didn't just open our doors and expect for people to support us. You know what I mean? So like, and they saw, and a lot of people saw our growth in real time play out. They seen Life Juices as a table and a tent. Then they seen the food truck. Then they seen the trailer, right? So you're seeing kind of our growth play out right before your eyes. And I think that's kind of what folks rally behind now that we have our own brick and mortar.
I love the evolution of that story because you were always in motion forward. You know what I mean? Even though things were happening, not happening, I mean, it's like hurry up, slow down, but you're still in motion. Talk to
Yes.
me about. I'm curious about the juice recipes. Who comes up with the juice
Yeah.
recipe and menu options? What does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, a lot of trial and error. A lot of, that doesn't look right or taste right. What the hell is that? And then kind of, transforming that into something a little bit more presentable, palatable. So a lot of concepts we designed in the kitchen, right? Long hours, late nights, figuring out what works, what pairs together, right? Not every fruit and veggie can pair together smoothly to create a good taste. And then we also wanted to, have juices that attack different parts of the body, different organs of the body, right? All our bodies are different. We all need different things. So, we have green juices, we have beet juices, we have carrot juices that all kind of, go after a specific part of the body. And then, I'm always thinking about the younger generation. I want to appeal to the kids. I want to make healthy cool again. So, all our juices are named after superheroes, our superhero powers, right? So you got invincibility. Like if you're playing a video game, right? You want to go get the invincibility pack, for ultimate life. Or you may need the protective armor, right? As a shield, a cardio shield. Super senses for, increased discernment and eyesight. So all of our juices are named after superpowers to try to appeal to the kids. And yeah, there's a lot of intention behind that.
I had the Purple Rain, and that one was really good too. I love that juice. So this is
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by this. So you had testers, right? I mean, or like you guys were putting
Yeah.
together the concoction, and then because you have to chart down the ingredient. But once you get the sweet spot, like you got to remember, like, okay, how much of this did we put in, and like, talk to me
Yo.
about that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. At first, it was just kind of, we're just winging it, figuring out what works. But then once we got like a working model of like a flavor profile, then it's like, all right, we need to figure out the exact measurements, right? The quantities, because and then that changes based on the equipment you use. So we started with like a little tabletop juicer, and the amounts don't carry over to like a larger juicer, right? You think you can just put in the same amount. So we had to write down our recipes, and then the tasting was the big thing. We put together taste parties within community just for folks to try and say, hey, what do you think about this flavor profile? Is the ginger a little too harsh? Does that need to get toned down? What about the turmeric? Is it too much? um, NDC threw a tasting party for us with their staff, and all the staff they're knowledgeable with food based business. This is what they do, and so we got their feedback, and everyone kind of loved the final product, the final menu of what we put together in terms of the 7 different proprietary blends that we offer. There was really no pushback on kind of that's a little too much because it's designed to for someone who's just trying cold press juice for the first time. We want to reel those folks in, and last thing we want to do is turn them away, or for the juice to just be all celery and spinach, and that's their introduction to cold press juice. So everything is kind of palatable, but again, we're not sacrificing the health benefits. You still get, a ton of medicinal medicine from the leafy greens, the ginger, the turmeric, the herbs, but then it's always paired like, with a sweet fruit to balance it out.
Right. Because people want something that tastes good. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
when you think about a soda now. You have these prebiotic sodas, and they're saying it's 5 grams of sugar, and
yeah,
it's like you could have no sugar, but then and it could be healthier, but then people are like, but it doesn't taste
right.
good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you you
People you lead with your taste, right? And you lead with your eyes. So it has to be presentable, right? That color has to be vibrant. I think the first introduction is your eyes, and then you're right. Yeah, the taste buds have to be activated.
what I noticed, like when I look on your social media feed, I see a lot of people who are happy. You know what I mean? Like I see that they're posing with the product, they're smiling,
Yeah.
they're having a good time. So tell me how you created that experience because it's one thing to create the
Yeah.
product, but now you created a vibe
Right.
and an experience.
Right. Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I love that. I love hearing that. And that's kind of the impact we're going for. Um, I think everything we do is rooted in culture from, our marketing, our messaging. Um, and I think people sense that. I think a lot of folks are looking for brands that represent the culture and the people that reside in the neighborhood, right? I mentioned that our neighborhoods are filled with, payday loans and liquor stores and smoke shops and so much fast food options that it's time. I think people are ready to rally behind a brand that represents culture and represents people. We have folks that live in the neighborhood that work in the shop, right? That lived in Rondo their whole lives. And so everything we do is rooted in connection, and culture. Um, and we're not looking to be. We want to create a sense of belonging. I've been in juice bars across the country, and you walk in, and it's like you damn near got to have a yoga mat just to order a smoothie. You know what I mean? Like, or you like, so like, I think, that's what people connect to. It's like, you don't have to know what chia seeds are to appreciate what we do. You don't have to know what spirulina is. It's like, we'll educate you, right? We'll walk you down that journey and inform you on the health benefits of these things. But again, we want to bring in people who it's their first time trying a cold press juice. And I think so that's kind of what folks are connecting to. And then, that they taste the product and it's good and it's 80 degrees outside and you have that plant-based slushy and you can just taste every ingredient in it. You can't help but smile.
Yeah. Well, and what you mentioned is you got a low barrier of entry where they're not intimidated by it. Like you talked about the yoga mat.
Yes.
Like it's
Yeah.
they feel like, hey, I belong here. I can come here and I can be myself. And I love
Yes.
that. So you're making such a huge impact on the community over the course of years now. Like when you think about it, is it what you envisioned? I mean, how does it feel to know that?
It feels incredible. I didn't know it was gonna be. I didn't know we would be here today in our own brick and mortar with this much love and support. When you're kind of working the markets, you can't see past next week. It's just it's fun. It's exciting, but it's daunting, right? And it's a lot of work. So, like being able, I always had big picture in mind. I knew it was a possibility, but to finally get here and see kind of the community love and support, it feels amazing. We get folks every day that they're like, I was driving by and they're so intrigued by like the building. And they're like, I'm wondering what you guys got going on. And, we get folks that were on their way to White Castle. And they're like, I saw you guys and I pulled over. So it's like, we're getting so many new faces and people to the space that it just really feels incredible to see our reach expand.
So if we go back to 2014, 2015 to where we are today, what has entrepreneurship taught you about yourself and how have you seen just the growth in yourself between now and then?
Yeah. Wow. I would say, a lot of lessons learned. I think the biggest one is just that, I've been able to kind of start with what I had, and start, where I was, right? I didn't have a lot of things figured out. And I think, entrepreneurship can seem so out of reach for a lot of people. And I think, like, if anything, we're an example of that. You can start with the tools that you have. You may not have all the resources, right? You may not have the capital you need. You may not have the best equipment, but guess what? You can get started and you start to gather those things along the way and it comes to you. So like I said, we started with that little styrofoam cooler, a table. We didn't even have a tablecloth on the table, Kevin. Like, you know, it's one of the little $50 tables you get from Walmart, and it just shows, you can make it greater later. I think the more important thing is to just start. So that's a big lesson that I learned. When I'm thinking about adding new things to the menu, it's like you want to perfect it and want it to be just right, but it's like, okay, let's not let's get out of our own way, put it out, and we can perfect it as we go. So that's a big lesson. And then one of the things that I learned about myself is just resiliency, being able to kind of stay the course, and even when I feel depleted, there's always tomorrow. There's always another opportunity, and learning to take advantage of those opportunities, being prepared. But yeah, so many lessons. But those are two big ones for me.
And people look up to you. They admire you. They see you from a distance. They see you up close. You're an approachable guy. What advice would you give to the young people or older people, people in general who have an
Yeah,
aspiration to want to do something like this? What advice would you give them?
yeah. I think just going back to that point of what I learned about myself. Not having all the resources at hand, it's important to just start with what you have. Start now, right? Don't wait. I think, procrastination kills a lot of dreams. And we're always waiting for the right opportunity. And, sometimes you got to show up and just take the opportunity. um, you know, but for young folks, or whoever it may be, I think, really grounding yourself and figuring out what makes you come alive, right? What keeps you up at night. I think that's going to be the driving force for any business idea, right? It's like you can think of a concept that makes money or is a viable business, but like if that doesn't, you know what I mean? If that doesn't like keep you up at night and make you come alive, the amount of effort that it takes to really launch a business, and grow it, right, and scale it, is going to take a lot out of you. So if it doesn't really kind of light a fire in you, that's what you have to find, and sometimes that just takes, sitting still, right? Getting quiet and sitting with kind of your aspirations and figuring out what it is that you would do for free, what it is that you're good at, what are you good at that others struggle at. And I think really coming to terms with some of those questions can point you in the right direction, right? And be a guidepost to maybe a business idea, um, or a concept that you want to get off the ground. And then just kind of having that resiliency, to make it happen. Embarrassment is going to be the price of admission. It's not going to be perfect. You know what I mean? When you started this podcast, you didn't have it all figured out, right?
Absolutely.
But you you may have you got better equipment, you got a better mic, you got better production, and you know as it grows and it becomes better. But the important thing is to start and just start where you are.
This segment is sponsored by Kowalski's Markets, where it's all about the joy of good food. I'm going to get you out of here on this question I ask all my guests, and that is, what's your Twin
Yeah,
Cities hidden gem? And it could be a place, event,
yeah,
or experience that you think more people should know about.
yeah, yeah, indeed. For the hidden gem, I'm gonna have to uh show some love to Heal, Minneapolis. Heal, Minneapolis, on the north side of Minneapolis is it's a beautiful space. It's a plant forward cafe. It's not just a cafe, it's a healing space. They do a lot of community gatherings, therapy sessions, healing circles. But aside from that, the food is just good, right? This is so all plant-based options. I know they do a lot of, different Southern Caribbean style uh cuisine. It's all made from scratch too. So the menu is incredible. It's delicious. It's nutritious. And similar to us, they're standing in a gap. Bringing accessible nutrition to neighborhoods that need it. Right on the north side. So Heal Minneapolis, shout out the owner, Sierra Carter, doing amazing work. And she's not new, to healing. She has plenty of her hands in different healing modalities. So yeah, I just love what she's doing with Heal Minneapolis. Check them out. 41st and Lindale, right on the north side of Minneapolis.
Kali, man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you just getting to know you, learning more about you and your business. I support what you're doing and appreciate you coming on the pod today.
Thank you. Thank you, man. The feeling's mutual. Likewise. Thanks for having me. And I look forward to connecting soon.
All right. And you can find me on the Twin Cities Leaders podcast listen on Apple's podcast, Spotify, and YouTube, or you can, for behind the scenes content, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. I'll see you next week. Bye now.